Okay, welcome to a deep dive. We've got a really fascinating stack of sources today. Ancient texts, but with wisdom that feels incredibly well now.
Absolutely. We're looking at stories that come from the Dhammapadaṭṭhakathā commentary, specifically.
That's right, two really powerful, quite moving stories, Paṭācārā and Kisāgotamī.
Huh?
And our mission, really, is to unpack what these narratives, I mean, they're rooted in such profound loss, what they can actually teach us about finding some genuine stability.
A true refuge, especially when life throws its worst at us.
And they do it so effectively. These sources, set right in the Buddha's time at Nibbāna, use these incredibly vivid human examples to show a universal truth. So the human condition and the path to liberation. The teaching in action, basically.
So let's start with Paṭācārā. The account, it opens with the Buddha teaching about her. It mentions her sorrow had started to lighten recently. And you have to understand the background here. She'd suffered just unimaginable loss.
Unspeakable, really. Her entire family gone in rapid succession, left her completely shattered.
And the teaching she received speaks directly to that. It's this, well, almost confronting idea that our closest relationships are families. They give us so much support day to day, but ultimately, they can't shield us from death.
The Buddha's words in the text are pretty stark. He says, children, parents, other relatives. They cannot be a true refuge, that's taita, or a real shelter, Lena, when death comes knocking, when you're going to the other world.
Right, even if they're standing right there beside you, in that ultimate sense, they just aren't that final protection.
And the text defines those terms, doesn't it?
It does. Taita is that refuge, like a solid ground. Lena is shelter, protection. And relatives, bandhava, here means the wider circle, beyond just parents and kids.
And the source really pushes on why. Why can't they be? It totally acknowledges the daily support, food, drink, help with duties, all that.
Sure, the practical stuff.
But it says, when death actually arrives, they are completely powerless. There's nothing they can actually do to stop it.
Which, well, it forces a pretty fundamental question, doesn't it? If these connections we cherish most, the ones that give us so much strength day to day, if they can't save us from death, then where is true safety found?
Exactly.
And that's where the teaching pivots. It points inward.
Right. And that's when the Buddha delivers that core verse for Paṭācārā and everyone there. Children are no protection, nor father, nor relatives. For one overcome by death, there is no refuge among kin. It's blunt, clear.
A tough truth. And knowing this, recognizing that kind of mutual support just isn't possible against death itself, the instruction for a wise person, a Paṭācārā, is clear. Purify your virtue. Salaivizotattva.
So the focus shifts from relying on others externally to cultivating something internal.
Precisely.
And the account adds, interestingly, that they should quickly purify the path leading to Nibbāna.
Which is described right there as the eightfold path, guarded by this fourfold purification of virtue. That's presented as the actual refuge.
Not the external relationships.
Not in that ultimate sense, no. And the result for Paṭācārā, after hearing this, really grappling with impermanence and the limits of external refuge, it was transformative.
She attained stream entry, right? The first stage of awakening.
That's it. Sotāpatti, and many others there did too. It shows this isn't just theory, it's a practical path to change.
Okay, now let's turn to Kisāgotamī, another incredibly poignant story, also from Jetavana, involving this almost frantic search for something impossible.
Yes, Kisāgotamī had lost her only young son, and she was just consumed by grief, carrying his body, asking everyone for medicine to revive him. It's such a raw picture of personal loss, and also the delusion that this horror is unique to her.
And the Buddha's approach, it's so skillful in the text, no easy platitudes, he gives her a task.
Right, go find mustard seeds, just a tiny amount.
And this is the key, only from a house where no one has ever died.
And this is where her personal tragedy opens up into this universal understanding. She goes door to door, desperate, asking for these seeds from a death-free home.
And she can't find one.
Not a single one. Every house has known loss. And the text highlights her realization. The dead in that village vastly outnumbered the living. That was her aha moment.
Wow. Just imagine that dawning on her. The Buddha then acknowledges her initial state. The source says he saw she was thinking, only my son has died.
But then he reveals the truth she just uncovered herself. This is a fixed truth for all beings. Duvatama esa sabasatana. Death isn't personal in that way. It's universal.
And he goes further, explaining how King Death drags everyone away eventually, especially those whose desires aren't fulfilled. He uses a really striking analogy.
And an incredibly powerful one. This leads to the verse he speaks. Him who is infatuated with children and cattle, whose mind is clinging, death carries away, as a great flood carries away a sleeping village.
Let's unpack that a bit. Infatuated with children and cattle.
Puttapasusamatanti. The teaching explains it means being intensely attached, seeing them possessively as mine, clinging to their qualities, beauty, strength, whatever. It's more than just love. It's ownership, attachment.
And whose mind is clinging.
By Atsamanose. That extends the attachment to everything else. Money, gold, possessions, bowls, robes. The text mentions even clinging to pleasant sense experiences. Basically, mental entanglement with the world.
Got it. And the analogy itself, death is a great flood, Mahagova.
Yeah, deep, wide, unstoppable. And it sweeps away a sleeping village, Sutagama.
Which the text defines
As beings who are essentially asleep, meaning ignorant, heedless of the true nature of reality, of impermanence. The flood takes everything. The text says, not even a dog is left. Total devastation.
So the point is crystal clear. Our attachment, our clinging to things that will change and disappear, makes us like that sleeping village.
Vulnerable.
Utterly helpless when the inevitable flood of death arrives. Heedlessness, ignorance of impermanence, that's the vulnerability.
And just like Paṭācārā, the outcome for Kisāgotamī after hearing this. Same result, stream entry. Sotāpatti fale petipetahi. Her immense personal suffering, when met with this wisdom, became the very catalyst for her awakening. The teaching benefited many others there too.
Okay, so let's pull back a bit, bringing these two stories together, Paṭācārā and Kisāgotamī. What's the core message coming through from these ancient sources?
Well, what's really striking is how they reach such a similar point, even from slightly different angles. Both stories show us, quite forcefully, that the things we naturally lean on for security, our family, our possessions, worldly success.
The usual suspects.
Exactly. They just can't provide ultimate protection from suffering and death. They aren't the final refuge. They're temporary supports, conditioned, subject to change. Always.
And they really shine a light on how it's our own minds, that infatuation, that clinging that makes a loss so devastating. It's our attachment that sets us up to be swept away like that sleeping village.
Precisely. And crucially, both stories point towards the same solution. True refuge isn't out there somewhere.
It's internal.
It's internal. It lies in, first, understanding the impermanent nature of things, that arising and passing away. Budaya, that's the reality of conditioned existence, mentioned in texts linked to Paṭācārā. And second, purifying one's own conduct and mind, following the path.
The path to Nibbāna.
That's where the real stability lies, the kind that holds up against the inevitable changes of life and death.
It's a fundamental shift, really. Moving focus from trying to find security in things the flood will take to cultivating something within that transcends it. So we've taken quite a deep dive into these incredibly moving accounts. We've seen how this ancient wisdom tackles the very real pain of loss and our very human tendency to cling to things that don't last.
They really do challenge us, don't they? To look honestly at where we're placing our hope for real security, for lasting happiness. Is it in that sleeping village that's vulnerable?
Or are we investing in cultivating that inner path, that unshakable refuge?
The journeys of Paṭācārā and Kisāgotamī, as these texts tell them, they remind us that facing the truth of impermanence, which can be hard, no doubt, is actually the first essential step toward finding a kind of stability that death itself can't touch. So here's a final thought for you to consider, coming straight from these stories. If children, parents, relatives can't ultimately shield you from death, and if clinging to things leaves you vulnerable like that sleeping village before the flood, where then for you does true refuge actually lie?